asked to go away, house sitting. He was house sitting for a couple weeks. And he came home, and he came to my bedside. I remember this was a Saturday. In the daytime, he came to my bedside. He says, Mom, he says, we got to get out of here. He said, until you've been away, he says, you don't realize how bad you feel, how much better you feel once you've been away. It's just kind of becomes a state of being. And it wasn't long, like that week. He came home, and he says, Mom, he says, I found us a place. And that was all we had discussed at that time was, boy, you just don't know how much better it is once you're away from here. And he said he found us a place, and it was a cottage, actually hadn't been lived in for quite some time. It was very dilapidated, but we needed a place that we could go to away from the turbine, that we could afford. And I had 2 dogs and a cat. And I was not prepared, regardless, to give up my animals. My one dog, I still have her. She's 18 years old. She's been with me that long, my Australian Shepherd Belle, and I won't abandon her. And my cat, she passed away a year ago now, and she was 17, and I wasn't going to abandon her either. And in looking for a place to live, it's hard to find a place that'll let you have your pet. By law, yes, a landlord cannot say you cannot have a dog, but reality is, so I say I don't have pets and move in with my pets. It's not starting off on the right foot. I don't believe that's a good way to be. And so Aaron was able to find us a place, and it was bad, really bad. It had snakes, it was horrible, but I was feeling better. I learned to deal with not having the necessities of home. We stayed there until the winter time. It got really cold. It wasn't winterized. Then I had suggested there was a house that I thought was a nice place that maybe if they put it up for rent that it would be suitable for us. And it had been up for sale. And I asked my son, I said, why don't you go ask the realtor if we can rent there? It's been sitting for sale and it's not selling. And so we ended up renting there. That was a good place to be. Good for the most part. It was 6 kilometers from the turbine. And when the wind came from the west, which was the direction of the turbine, I found I had the symptoms again at that house at 6 kilometers away. And as it turned out, that house sold, so we had to move out of there. We went back to the shack cottage at Long Point. At this time, like I said, it was a shack, and it only had, actually at one point we had water, cold water. The pump blew in it, so it ended up, we didn't even have water in our house. How we managed there was just Aaron and I. Things weren't fancy, no big fancy meals. But we would bring water in. I was able to heat the water. There was hydro. And we would do dishes once a day, at the end of the day. As for toileting, we would flush the toilet 2 pails full a day. And that, otherwise, if you just pee in the toilet, you put the lid down. You don't flush the toilet. And I would heat water and sponge bath. We would also swim in the lake when it was warm enough, when we had gone back the second time, before it got too cold. If you wanted to bathe, we would go in the lake, which was close by. We would also ride our bicycles down to the provincial park, and we would go into the park, and we would use the showers there. And I could also shower at school if I came early or stayed late when the change room showers weren't being used. I would also shower at school. So that's pretty much how I survived. Then, of course, that got cold again. So my aunt and uncle had moved into a nursing home. So their house was available. But again, that was it was about the same distance, 6 kilometers from the turbines. And when the wind blew from the turbine direction, it was sick again. So we stayed at my aunt's house. in those kind of conditions. And then how did that go? Aaron, friends through Aaron, in town, there had been, listen to this place where I live, in Port Rowan, little town, close by, and Aaron worked in Port Rowan at that time. He was doing accounting, and it was a reasonable distance from my place of employment. I was still working in school. But this house had sat on the market for a couple of years as well. And the problem with that house, it was really nice. It had been completely renovated by the owner. And there had been a fire in the house. And as it turned out, the fire was deliberately set. The woman who had lived there had recently separated from her husband of many years. What had happened, they were a very nice family. It appeared to be very nice and everything, but she had been outside on a ladder and fell off the ladder and fell and broke her back, and she was now in a wheelchair, and she was paraplegic. So, that I think contributed to the breakdown of their marriage. And when she served up papers eventually for the divorce, the ex-husband barricaded the doors from the outside and burnt the house, lit the house on fire, and the wife died in the house. And in a small community, of course, everybody knows the story. Nobody wants to live there. It's a spooky story. Well, Aaron and I rented the place, and we were quite comfortable there when we first moved there. But I have had to move a couple of times since then. That house sold. I also experienced with Aaron, and again, that Port Rowan was, as far as I'm concerned, Port Rowan, where we were at in that house, was about 7 kilometers from the turbines. For us, that was too close. When the winds came, like I said, from the west, from my experience living with Aaron, I truly believe it affects him mentally. I've seen him in moods where I was afraid of him. That's totally unlike Aaron. When I started experiencing this, I questioned what is going on here. Is this? And I've never known Aaron to drink or do drugs, but I've heard of stories of what happens to people when they are influenced by drugs and whatnot. And it even crossed my mind, was Aaron into something that was causing this? This was not Aaron. And so then, I kept an eye out, actually looked around quite a bit, looked for evidence. Nothing drug-related, drug-induced, alcohol-induced, nothing like that. And I truly believe that with Aaron, that infrasound affects him that way. And for a time there, I moved out of there. I couldn't live with Aaron anymore. It was just too stressful for me. And again, there's another problem here. I've got another kid. What do I do with him? How do I help him? I'm worried about him. So, when I moved out of there, is this story getting to be too long and boring for you?
No, I'm extremely moved.
Well,
I can't, my God.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was still working. Even though I was exhausted, I came to the point where, at school, it's a 2-story school, and sometimes I had to go upstairs to use the copy room or whatever, and I'd have my book bag, and I would get to the top, and the stairs were split. There's a landing in the middle, and I would go up to the first landing, make it up to the second, and I would be completely out of breath now, and I was not an obese, unhealthy, I'm a fit person, generally, I would say, other than these health issues encroaching upon me. I was always active, and stairs were nothing to me. But at this time, I would have to stop at the top of the stairs, and there was a window there, and it overlooked the football field, and so I always rested because I couldn't go any further. I rested at the top of the stairs, And I can remember